Did you make the cocktail?
I did.
Oh, how is it?
It's a journey. I feel like I should wait to talk about
we'll
it.
talk about it. We'll talk about it.
Okay, hello and welcome to Spooky Sips, where we put our love of horror movies into a podcast and sip some spirits along the way. I'm one of your hosts, Yvette, and I'm here with my co-hosts, Laura and Brianna.
Hello.
Hey. All right, so we just stepped back in time to the year 1960 and spent some time with Alfred Hitchcock. He produced and directed Psycho. I am sure that you've heard of it. It's a little well-known film.
Yeah.
Basically, the movie is about a woman that steals from her employer and goes on the run. And on her run, she stops at this little rundown motel that's kind of off the main highway now. And it's run by Norman Bates, who lives there with his mother. And it goes downhill from there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm,
Yeah.
mm-hmm. All right.
Classic movie.
Classic movie. So I had seen this movie, years and years ago. And then I rewatched it very recently. Had you two seen it before?
Yeah,
Yes.
I watched it a few years ago, just as like wait, I haven't seen this movie. I should watch it and then rewatch. But it had been long enough that obviously the movie's pretty unforgettable, but it had been long enough that I didn't remember every detail. So it was a fun rewatch.
Mm-hmm. I've seen it a few times. I saw it as a teenager where I don't think I appreciated it as much. And then just knowing more about appreciating Alfred Hitchcock movies and stuff. I've seen it a bunch and it's a classic.
While I was watching it, this one was I had a moment where I was like, I forgot how good this movie is.
Exactly.
Which sounds like kind of a dumb thing to almost say about Psycho, where it's like, oh, hot take, it's good.
No,
but I forgot how good it was.
Very good. I noticed these little moments in it, and I'll get into some of them as we talk about the movie, but there were little moments that I appreciated more this time where I really took note of them and was like, wow, that makes this movie.
I think that's what you get when you watch a Hitchcock movie.
Mm-hmm.
Just his way of filming, his style, his angles, his colors, the pacing. I just think that the details are so impeccable in Hitchcock movies that's what you get.
Agreed.
Yeah.
No, definitely. Yeah. So I feel like this movie really is, it's almost divided in halves.
Yeah, it
right?
is.
You get the first half, which is the journey you think you're going on.
Yep.
And then
it's almost like acts, of a play.
No, it is. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I feel like for this one, instead of breaking down deaths, because I feel like it'd be a crime to skip right to the death, we could just talk about the first half, switch to the later act of this movie.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So for me, I think it starts out with the most amazing opening. So you just have this, and the only way I can describe it is frantic music.
Yeah.
So you just have this frantic music and these moving lines on the screen, and already you're like on edge, tense, and just it's a great opening.
It's such a strong start to the movie.
Yeah.
The music in this movie is epic.
No, it absolutely makes the movie. I think everyone can agree that the score for this movie makes it. I know one thing is after they finished filming the movie and they did the rough cut, which obviously is not the final draft, it's the rough cut. Mm-hmm. Hitchcock and his writer who were kind of reviewing it, they were not happy with it. So they were Hitchcock kind of grabbed him on the shoulder and he was like, it's the rough cut. It's going to be okay. Neither of them really liked it. And then when they got the final with the music added, they were like, oh, okay. Yeah, we did it. Yeah. There it is. We figured it out.
Yep. No, it's one of those movies where, music often makes a movie, but there are some where it makes or breaks, and it would not be the same movie with different or no music. And this is one of those.
Yeah.
Yep.
For sure.
And they get you right at the beginning. It's from the start, the score makes the movie. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we open up to the scene of them at the office. Or no, I'm sorry, not at the office.
Oh, no.
No.
We get the text where it's it's Friday afternoon. Okay, it's Phoenix, Arizona, December 11th, 2:43 on Friday afternoon. It's
yes.
Wow, that's a lot of details.
That's specific. Yeah.
Cut to a hotel room.
Yes.
Oh,
brown chicken, brown cow.
This movie
Sam
was
and Marion.
ahead of its time.
It was. I mean, they're just in there doing their thing.
Yeah.
There's a secret affair happening between Sam and Marion.
Yes.
Mhm.
It's very sultry, very
very-
secretive,
Very passionate.
very passionate.
It includes, so throughout the movie, I have several favorite quotes.
Oh my gosh, yes.
My most favorite quote of the entire movie is Sam and Marion are kind of arguing about being together. She's like, I want to marry you. And he's like, I'm poor. I live in this like tiny little room. I could do nothing for you. And I forget what it is they're talking about mail, but he's talking about like, what are we going to do?
Yes, I think I know that line. I think I wrote it down too.
Oh, the line that she says.
Yes.
So he's like holding her and he's like, what are you going to do? Like, sit here and mail things out and lick the stamps. And she goes, I'll lick the stamps.
Yes.
And it's like the most loving thing she could possibly say. Like she's going to lick the stamps for him.
Yeah, because
I
the
love
line
it.
before that is the one that I wrote down because he's talking about how they're going to like be together. And he says, when I send my ex-wife her alimony checks, you can lick the stamps. And that's when she responds like, I'll lick the stamps.
I'll lick the stamp.
Oh,
I love it.
Oh, it's so good.
They're
So
good.
good.
I forget which I didn't write it down. I don't know why I didn't. Where she's talking about their relationship and how he, it's gonna like come over and have dinner and like that's good. I think she's talking about like respectability or something.
Yeah.
And she's like, you make respectability look so unrespectable. Or
Yes, that is what she says. Yeah,
so
it is
good.
something like that.
The dialogue is great.
The dialogue is so strong. Like,
perfect.
Yeah.
oh, I know.
Yes.
Someday I want someone to tell me they'll lick stamps for me
Yeah.
Right.
for my alimony payments.
For their ex-wives' alimony payments.
Oh, so good.
Yeah, solid start.
So good.
Yeah.
And then Marion heads back to her office because she can't be too late. And
Right.
she's got the weirdest office mate.
Oh my God, her office mate is so weird. I love her.
I
Like,
love
just
her.
talking about who called, and it's her husband and then her mother to see if her husband called.
She was quirky. I like
Very
that.
That's
quirky.
Hitchcock's wife, by the way, in case you didn't know.
I love that.
Yeah, like she
I
very
feel
much
like
so
her name would
being
be
an actress.
Tippy or something.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like Tippy.
Yeah.
I don't know. Tippy
Yes.
Hitchcock. I don't know what her name is.
It is Pat Hitchcock.
Oh, okay. That's disappointing. I was hoping it was something more
We're
significant.
calling her Tippy anyway.
Yeah, her
Yeah.
name is Tippy now.
Oh, and then one other fun fact for that scene is, did you catch the cameo? Because Hitchcock is in all of his movies.
Yes.
He's right outside the office.
Yeah,
as
he's right
Marion's
outside
coming
the
in.
office.
I did
Yeah.
not
Mhm.
see.
Yeah,
Yep.
he's facing away from the, so we only see the back of him, but
Right.
he's a pretty distinct look. And part of the reason he did that is because it had, become a thing at this point that he was in all of his movies, which did not start actually intentional. It was mainly budgetary reasons. They needed someone to
Necessity.
stand in, and so he would go and stand in and do stuff. But it became a thing that he would be in all of his movies, but he didn't want it to be distracting.
Yeah.
And so he picked this scene because it's not like nothing important was really happening. It's like she's walking into her office. And he wanted to be early so people weren't distracted later in the movie, like looking out for him.
Like trying
Oh,
to find him.
okay,
Yeah.
I
So
like
that's why
that.
he did it then.
Nice.
All right.
Yes.
By the way, sippers, in case you're listening to this and thinking, oh my gosh, Laura, how are you so sick 2 weeks in a row? We're recording a double feature.
Yes.
So the last
Yes.
time, if you noticed, my voice was off. And then
Mhm.
this one, I have not been sick for 2 weeks. We recorded all in one night.
She's just giving us her sultry voice.
I'm
Can't
just
help
giving you
it.
my
Her
sexy-
late night jazz club voice.
Yes.
I'll lick the stamps.
Ah,
I mean, it's really
classic.
sexy. I also
Yeah.
have tissue on my nose right
As
now.
she blows her
She blows
nose.
her nose.
I knew
Ooh, baby.
Oh, sticky shoes.
So-
All right. So they're back at the office, and there's a client that comes in who's very drunk, and just being very drunking, and
Yeah.
bragging about the fact that he's going to buy this house for his daughter who's getting married, and he's going to pay it in cash. And he's flaunting
Yeah.
around this envelope of, what is it, $40,000?
$40,000. Yeah.
Which back then Like,
So that would be
holy cow.
$400,000
Okay.
today.
Really?
Can you imagine
Yeah.
carrying that around? Like,
Yeah. And so I looked it up. The average cost of a new house in 1960 was $12,007. So
Okay.
he was buying a
oh,
nice
wow.
house
Yeah.
in the 60s. I mean, it would actually be like, I mean, you know, house prices what they are today, you know.
Right.
But like yeah, someone basically just getting $400,000 and being like, I'm just gonna pay cash.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
Wild.
You know, when we
Yeah.
blow up as our podcast, we'll that'll seem like nothing to us.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll be
that'll
like,
us.
40,000, 400,000.
Yeah.
That's nothing. Chump change.
Yeah. I'll pay
Oh my
cash.
gosh.
But yeah, the guy was like real creepy toward Marion.
Oh, yes.
With his
very.
$40,000, just very I don't know, so just some rapey vibes he was putting off.
And he was very like
Yeah.
belittling and
Yeah, like you
Mhm.
little woman, and
like, yeah, you poor little woman with your unhappy problems.
Yeah, because it was all about like buying happiness.
Yeah.
yes.
And you know, paying to not be unhappy and stuff. I mean, the actor nailed it. You hated him.
Yeah.
So what did Marion do? Instead of going to the bank, she stole that cash.
Took off.
She just took off.
Which is so
Basically,
unexpected.
It is because she claims to have a headache. She goes home, and next thing we do is we see her packing a suitcase
Packing
with
up.
the 40,000 sitting next to her bag, and she's out of here.
It seems
as
pretty out
she-
of character. Yeah.
It does.
Yeah.
It does. And as she's driving out of town, who does she see but her
Oh my
boss?
gosh.
Yeah.
And he sees her leaving town and looks confused. And that's when the panicky music starts again, which,
Yeah.
I love the scenes of her driving out of town. Just the
Oh my gosh, I
close-ups
know.
with her
Mhm.
face and the driving with the
'Cause it's
music.
Really rainy, and she can't see out of the
Is
windshield at all.
so
Mhm.
good.
It's panic inducing, I feel
It is
like.
panic
Yes,
inducing.
and her acting is when she gets pulled over by the cop.
Just her facial expressions.
Yeah. And it's like, you know what? Like, that is, I think, how someone would act, right? Like, honestly, it's like whenever I see a cop, it's like, I'm not doing anything illegal and I'm anxious.
Me too.
Laura's
knows.
the
I can-
same
just-
way.
I cannot drive by a cop. And
She
not-
panics.
I
lose my
don't
shit.
know how to act.
I don't know.
I know.
He's weak, arm spaghetti. I
Yep.
don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah, no. I
Yep.
can't handle it. I can't
So I
handle
feel
it.
when I saw her, I was like, that's how I would act.
Right.
Even
Yes.
if I was doing nothing wrong, you know,
Right.
even if I
Right.
wasn't stealing $400,000.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I appreciated her act, but she's just so like, it's like frazzled and like short.
Very
but, like,
frazzled.
it's
Just so
so
uncomfortable. Like,
so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then she drives into town and switches out her car.
and the
Does
cop
the
follows
old-
her.
The old
Yes.
switcheroo, the cop follows her.
Mhm.
But basically, he loses the trail once she switched her car and she drives off. And that's when we see her in the rain and she can't really see.
Oh, that's
So
amazing.
she
Mhm.
pulls over to the old Bates Motel.
Yes.
Dun, dun, dun. And we should say it's off the old highway. So it's not the highway anymore. It's the old one.
Yeah.
And so it's very off the beaten track and no one else
She
is
took the
staying
wrong
there.
exit. I think
Yep.
she like didn't realize that
Yeah,
she was
she
getting
didn't
off the
realize.
highway.
Yeah,
Mhm.
she thought she was going to the correct town where Sam was. Because
Mhm.
you should say that's where she was going to go find Sam. So
Yep.
she thought she took the correct exit, didn't, and ended up at the Bates Motel where she
Yeah.
runs into Norman Bates. Oh,
Who-
Norman.
I have to say, I find him so cute and charming.
Oh no, I mean he
So
is.
cute.
I have a crush on Norman Bates. He's my type of guy. He's like that nerdy,
is.
tall, dark hair. Like I'm super into Norman Bates.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
so one thing is so the movie was based off of a book with the same name, Psycho. I haven't read it. I think they took kind of a different take with the movie and the book. So they are different. But in the original book, Norman Bates was supposed to be like a chubby, balding, middle-aged alcoholic man.
Interesting.
That was the original character. But when they had when their writer was, trying to take a stab at it, he knew that we were going to have to transition from being sympathetic to Marion's character to someone else. And it had to be Norman Bates. Like that's
Yep.
who was going to be like our next, like, you know, and it's like sympathetic in quotes.
No,
but, like, he
but
is,
totally.
you know, it's like he's supposed to be kind of like charming and young. And I think that was a great idea. I think that makes a lot
the
of
casting
sense
was
that they went
perfect.
that way. No, it
Yep.
really was. Yeah.
Because you are like, you know, you find him charming and you find him charismatic, even though he's like a bird taxidermist and doing some stuff that's pretty creepy.
Very like socially a little uncomfortable,
socially awkward. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, so before we get into it, because I feel like there's a lot that happens leading up to it, since we said the name of the movie, we should talk about what we're sipping on tonight.
We should.
So Laura chose our drink. So Laura, what are we sipping on?
Okay, so we are sipping on the Psycho Killer cocktail.
Perfect.
This is 2 ounces of Irish whiskey, 0.75 ounces Campari. Half an ounce of white creme de cacao, half an ounce of creme de banane or banana liquor, and 2 dashes of absinthe.
What a weird combination.
I found it fascinating.
Things.
It is a wild drink. So I am sipping on this right now. Okay, one thing you ladies might notice is this is a very dark red as opposed to like a bright red. Apparently the entire state of Oregon ran out of white creme de cacao. I went to like 3 different places, and at the third one they said, oh, if you experience multiple places being out of it, it means that the state is out of it.
Oh,
like, that's what's going on. And so he went and looked at it, and he's like, yeah, like the one you're looking for, like it is out, like no one will have it.
Wild.
So I ended up going with the dark creme de cacao, which they said has a really similar flavor. I think it's like it's just darker looking. So like the bottles, one is clear and one is dark. So it's kind of like a darker version of it. This is such a wild drink because it is 100% alcohol.
Yes.
High alcohol. It's 100% liquor. Really. I expected it to be disgusting. I thought it was going to taste like cough syrup. It is so smooth and delicious.
Okay.
It is chocolatey and smooth, and like you get like the little hints of like banana. So it's like having like a chocolate covered banana. The absinthe is, I've never had absinthe before.
Okay.
That's just for spice. That's just
that's just, you know, it just adds a little like herby or like, a little flavor to it. So anyway, if by the end of this podcast, you're like, where did she go?
Yeah, it
was the absinthe.
She's on the floor.
She fell out of her chair.
Please fell out of her chair.
Yeah, Matt made the drink because I asked him to make it while we were doing a break, and he found a dash to be a very generous amount of absinthe.
Okay.
So yeah, nice. if I'm not here at the end,
that's why you're in a different place.
I'm a dream a baby's having.
Yes,
that's what you can imagine.
Yep, loves it. Loves it.
I'm excited. So I admit, sippers, that I am not drinking that. I am drinking throat coat tea. But
that's fair.
But also I didn't have all the ingredients and I didn't have time after work today to go to the store. So, you know, it is what it is. Okay. But I am going to try it. It's on my list now.
No, yeah.
Honestly, it's really surprising because
I love that.
Really good.
Maybe we can make it for a Halloween party or something.
Yeah. No, this is one of those that you can kind of like make in bulk because it's just all the liquids combined. And so, you know, you don't need to worry about any like extra stuff being added to it.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Love it.
That'll be a wild party though.
Yeah. Well, we have been known to have those.
We have. We sure have.
That's fair.
All right. So back to the Bates Motel. So Marion checks in under a false name, gets all settled, but she's hungry. And so Norman offers to host her at the house.
Yeah.
Have her over for dinner. And
so the house is like up the hill. Like, so there's the hotel kind of toward the street. And then you kind of go up this beautiful, creepy, spooky hill and house. But that's where the house is.
Yep.
No, yeah. Okay. We need to talk about the set.
Oh,
that we are in.
Set.
Because it is perfectly designed. The hotel is like perfectly average, but really creepy. And the house is just so ominous, like staring down at you from up in the hill. It is
this giant entity.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
it's
vision
so
that
well
they
done.
had, they absolutely brought it to life. because it was
Yes.
so cool.
So Marion goes back to her room and Norman goes up to the house, and we hear an argument between Norman and his mother, who's just got this little old lady voice. She's yelling very meanly at
Mhm.
Norman.
She
about-
sounds like a little old lady, but she also sounds like a total bitch.
Oh,
Oh
yeah.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Total. So she's yelling at Norman, being like, "What were you thinking? We're not having this trollop in our house."
Mm-hmm.
And so instead, Norman brings some sandwiches down to Marion, and they eat in the parlor behind his
Mhm.
office. And that's where we see all the taxidermy
His
animals.
favorite hobby. Or wait, does he not call it a hobby?
Yeah, it's not a hobby because a hobby is meant to pass the time, not fill it.
That's right.
Mm. I just felt like throughout this whole movie, there was such wonderful quotes, but also such deep dialogue. Like the
Yeah.
conversations either between, Sam and Marion or then Norman and Marion, they weren't fluff, which can be in
No.
a lot of horror movies.
Mm-hmm.
They like really kind of got to me. Like they mean something. They were deep.
There was
Yeah.
actual like content and chemistry and connection and
Mm-hmm.
real moments
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
this, in the in
Mhm.
between scenes.
Yeah, absolutely. There was
Yeah.
also one of my other favorite lines where Norman, they're talking about his mom and his relationship with his mom and how she's, Marion is like, your mom seems pretty awful. Why don't you just leave?
Yeah.
And Norman is talking about how close he is with her. And he goes, a boy's best friend is his mother. And he
Yes.
it's like, well, obviously a boy's best friend is his mother. First of
Yeah.
all, dude, you're not a boy anymore.
Yeah.
And no, that's not actually the case.
Well, and I love when he starts getting defensive of his mom because Marion's kind of like, well, why don't you just send her to a home, to a,
Yes.
what have you? And he gets pretty defensive.
Yes.
And I love the line that he says. It's something among the lines of, well, she just goes mad sometimes. We all go a little mad sometimes.
Yes.
So good.
Oh,
So good.
So good.
I
Like,
love when his character starts to get angry or uncomfortable.
yes.
Because the actor just absolutely nailed it. Just like adding the stutter and
It's like it
the,
washes over
razzle,
him.
like it's like it just completely because he's kind of like a normal, like smooth, almost talking like at the beginning, and then as soon as he gets uncomfortable or is questioned about something he doesn't want to talk about,
Yep.
he completely changes, just gets so incredibly
Falls apart.
awkward. And
Yeah.
it's so good.
Oh, it's
So good.
Acting is amazing.
It really is.
Yeah.
So, they kind of end the night and Marion is tired. So she goes back. And that's where we see that he has a little peephole where he can watch her, which, damn it, Norman, that's very uncomfortable. You creep.
It's always something like that's a fear of mine.
I know.
There's
Oh,
like
yes.
cameras or peepholes
Yes.
in hotel rooms
Oh,
or like
yeah.
bathrooms.
Yes.
Probably
Yeah.
from this movie.
Yes, probably.
Yeah, honestly. Have you seen the documentary? I think it's called like Voyeur, right? Voyeur on Netflix about the
Yes.
motel.
Yes.
So good.
Oh my
It's like,
gosh.
thanks. Now I'm afraid.
Yeah, you should be. So we see that. So then she goes to go get in the shower and he storms off and he goes back up to the house.
Mm-hmm.
So then next thing we see is Marion in the shower, which this scene, there's only one unrealistic moment in this whole movie. Who gets in the shower like that? Who gets in the shower before turning on the water? It would be freezing.
That's true.
Nobody gets in the shower before you turn the water on.
I have a friend who legit takes cold showers, and I think he might be a psychopath.
I know who you're talking about.
psychopath.
And he is a psychopath.
And I don't understand it, and I think it's wrong.
No,
and it's
Only a psychopath.
So that's the only part that bothers me. All right.
Hopper, my cat, has just decided to join the podcast.
You just got a little surprise
Hopper.
cat.
Yeah,
Hello,
hi,
surprise
buddy.
cat.
Buddy.
Okay, so
Oh,
Marion's doing her shower. All right, I'll leave my little one
Okay,
annoyance
fine.
aside. Fine.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's just that always gets me. And let's talk about the cinematography for a minute. Like, I love the camera shot of just the shower head, the circular shower head, like just the camera shots are amazing.
Of it like pouring.
Yeah.
They had to make a
Yes.
special shower head in order to do that.
Okay.
That would, like allow the camera to be in that spot. Because I guess nowadays you can do a lot of like fancy stuff where you cover the camera and like wipe it down
Right.
and stuff. But back then you had to kind of make a special little shower head that allowed them to get the shot.
Wow.
But I think it was well worth it. There was something really. I'm happy they included it. You had to include it.
Well, because then the scene ends, not to jump ahead, but the scene ends with the water going down the circular faucet. So it's like it's a very bookend moment of how the shower begins and how the shower ends.
Yeah,
I love that
beautiful.
symmetry.
It is beautiful.
Yeah. So that's our first death.
Yeah.
Our first death, Marion.
Yeah.
I was gonna say at first when she gets in the shower before it like becomes this beautiful scene that we just talked about, I feel like the way she's like washing herself, it looks like a soap commercial.
Yeah.
Like I was like, I got in my head like you're not fully clean until you're zestfully clean, because the way she's just like lathering and like looking so happy, I thought it looked like a soap commercial.
That's fair. Yeah.
Yeah, before things turned.
So yeah, we've got our first death.
And I love how like she grabs the shower curtain
Yes.
and like falls out of the tub, and then just the shot of her eye like upside
it's
down
so good.
after she's died. It's so creepy.
It's so well done. It's so iconic. And I feel like half my fun facts are about this scene in particular.
Yeah.
Because I love the way that the scene, we just see Marion in the shower, and you just see outside of the shower curtain the shadow of the door open, and you're like, oh shit, like here we go.
And it does appear to be a woman.
Yeah,
it does. We think it's mom.
And we just see the knife, the holding the hand up with the knife, like
the old lady haircut. Yeah.
And just the way that they do the sound effects and the music for this scene is like, because it's like it gasps along with the audience, and I love it.
Yeah. Apparently, originally Hitchcock thought about not having any music in this scene.
Okay.
And luckily, he realized that was in fact a mistake, because the music absolutely makes it. It's necessary.
That's what everyone thinks of when you think of Psycho. That
yes.
So good.
Oh, so Laura, you mentioned the eyes.
Yeah.
I guess originally for this scene, they wanted Jeanette Lee to wear contacts to make her look kind of more dead, like make the eyes look more dead. But I guess the way contacts worked back then, they were awful. Yeah, they were really terrible to deal with. And it would have taken like 6 weeks to get it figured out and get her eyes used to them, because you could not wear them for a long period of time. It was like a quick, short period thing. And so they decided to get rid of the contacts. So it was just her eye.
You know what? It was great.
No, it was so good.
Yeah, I think it looked great.
Yeah.
Okay, one other thing is obviously she was supposed to be naked because she's taking a shower.
Right.
But back in the day, you didn't really have a lot of scenes like this. So you didn't have a lot of options for covering up, during the scene. And so Jeanette Lee and the like costume wardrobe design person basically just had to like figure something out to make the scene work. And they ended up, they ended up landing on basically using like moleskin, like blister patches.
Nice.
That she kind of combined together in order to, keep her private parts from showing.
Covered.
So she was covered up a little bit, but that's what they ended up coming up with.
Really
interesting. Whereas nowadays it's really easy just to fashion whatever you need
exactly.
Nude thong and all of that. You're good to go.
Yeah. So they did have a nude model there were kind of two scenes. One where you could see Marion's character through the shower curtain. And one was like, they just knew that if she was wearing anything, you could see it through the shower curtain. Like it's going to be obvious. And so they wanted a nude model who, was used to working nude. It would just make more sense to have someone, come in and do that. So they had her do that. And then they also used a nude model for the scene that we haven't gotten to yet, where Norman is dragging her out of the bathtub and like carrying her out.
Yeah.
They did use just a nude body double for those two scenes.
Well, and I feel like I noticed that, like, looking through the shower curtain, I said, wow, she looks completely naked. Like, you can tell. So I think that it was good that they did that, because it would have been obvious.
It would have been. Yeah. No, I think that was a good call. Let's see. The blood is chocolate syrup.
Okay, I was wondering.
In case you were wondering what they used.
I mean, in a black and white movie.
Yeah. Yeah. So they tested a few different things, and chocolate syrup just showed up the best on camera.
And probably had the right consistency.
Yeah. So especially for the washing away scene, at the end of that.
I love that moment.
Chocolate syrup worked best for it.
Okay.
Which, I agree.
So I guess they're probably not going to colorize this movie then, because
no, I don't think so. Hitchcock did want this to be black and white. One, because he wanted to make a low budget movie, and black and white was part of that. And two, because he felt that it would be easier to watch because the gore is tamed by it being black and white.
Interesting.
Yeah. Which, makes sense. Like, it's easier to watch for some reason if it's black and white, right? You can't tell it's blood. It's easier.
No, it's true.
Accept.
Yeah.
And then, we talked about the water. The water was warm. They did want the actors to be comfortable, both Jeanette Lee and the nude body double. So it was warm for them. It wasn't too bad while being in the shower.
Oh, good.
And then the sound of the knife stabbing, what they did is they took a knife and then stabbed a melon in order to record the sound. So for all of the scenes where they're stabbing, including this one, you're hearing a knife stab a melon, which is how they prepared for it.
Okay. Did they eat the melon after, do you think?
It's kind of cool.
Yeah, like the craft services.
Right.
Like to craft services after.
We're going to eat like a few melons today.
Right. I had a melon salad.
Yeah.
Apparently there's some drama with this scene, which it makes sense. It's so popular. Of course, people are going to try to take credit for it. Saul Bass, who did the storyboard for a lot of the scenes, he I guess kind of tried to take credit for directing. He was like, I basically directed this scene because of his storyboard, and then tried to use that as proof. But the people who were on set, including Jeanette Lee, she came out and was like, no, Hitchcock directed this entire movie.
Yeah.
He was there for that scene. I think I would know. So people have kind of disproven that, where it's like, no, he made the storyboard, which is cool, and you did a good job with it. But it was Hitchcock.
But no, this was Hitchcock. Yeah. Yes.
So we had a little drama with the making of it.
Nice. I mean,
expected.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
When it's something that's this big, people want a piece of their pie.
And then I feel like it's at this point. Oh, well, actually, first, Norman drags the body out and then puts her into the trunk of her own car.
Yep.
And then he drives the car to this. It looks like an oil pit.
It really does.
Is amazing. It just reminds me of something I always thought in my childhood I would encounter, where I would sink in this oil pit.
Oh, yes.
Pushes the car in and it slowly sinks, but it's not a lake. I don't know what it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's a pit.
I have to say, on my rewatch, this was one of my favorite moments where I caught something that I didn't the first time, and I just loved it so much. But I love the scene. I don't know why I love it so much, but when the car is sinking and it doesn't sink all the way.
Yes.
And Norman just looks around, and the way that he looks around, well, what the fuck do I do with this now? Is one of my absolute favorite moments of my rewatch, where I never realized how much he just looks around like a lost child, being like, how do I get myself out of this pickle?
It was a good comedic moment.
It
honestly.
was after he's looking around, and then it finally does start to sink, and it makes a little bloop bloop bloop.
Yes.
Down, and then he just there's this cute little oh, okay, good.
Okay, great.
I just
I'm good.
loved that moment.
No, it was good.
Oh my gosh. And we should say that not Jeanette in the movie, Marion had wrapped the 40,000. Well, she had spent 700, so she wrapped the leftover money in the newspaper and put it on her bedside table. And Norman, when he was cleaning up the room, took the newspaper and put it in the car, so it went down with the car. And with her body,
Yeah.
that's where that 40,000 is.
And so for the go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, so speaking of that, we should specify that in the conversation Marion was having with Norman, she was mentioning, I'm going to leave first thing tomorrow morning. And he said, where are you going? And she was saying, I'm going to go back to fix this mistake. So she had changed her mind. She was not going to continue on. She was going to go and return the money.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Had a change of heart. She was ready.
Yeah. She was even going to pay back the 700 that she spent.
Yeah.
She was trying to figure out how to pay that back.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, she was ready. So for the scene, Brianna, since you mentioned that, that was in the script that Hitchcock wanted the whole, like the car sinks, stops, and then finishes sinking. So the way that they did this is they had like a lake at the studio that they were able to work with. And so they drained the lake, took, everything out, and then they put in a hydraulic lift, like what you would see in a mechanic's shop, basically.
Totally.
They put in one of those and then had it so the ramp was basically right on the shore, and then there was a rope on the opposite end that we couldn't see that pulled it on so it was on the right spot.
Cool.
And so they could lower, stop, and then lower.
And then lower again.
But they only had one take because cleaning the car and doing it would have taken so long that they were kind of just like fingers crossed, hoping we can get this in
this
one
better
take.
work.
So that was it. That was a one take scene. It's the one that we saw in the movie. Which, one takes for things like that, I feel like are always so
high
impressive.
pressure.
Yeah. It's like you have like a car going into a lake and you want to do this once.
Right.
Like that's pretty cool. They were able to get that done.
Yeah. So I feel like this is where we kind of split to the second half of the movie. Like now that Norman, we've seen this.
I made a note because it was like, I think it was 50 minutes into the movie.
I think so.
Marion dies.
Yep.
I was like, wait.
And it's like, bam, all right.
Our main character is dead.
Is gone.
Yep.
Half of the movie we just spent seeing her journey, and now she's gone.
And she's gone.
She's gone.
Which is a real ballsy move to make as a director and a writer and a, everything of the movie, because like we are invested in Marion and now she's gone and we've still got half a movie to get through.
Well, because we've only met, I guess, 3 main characters and 1 cop. Yeah. Like it's only Marion, Sam, and Norman.
Right.
Yeah.
And no one else has been of consequence.
That's all we know.
So
yeah. Yep. No, it honestly kind of reminded me of the movie we recently did, Barbarian, because it breaks all the rules.
It does break all the rules.
It breaks the storytelling rules.
Yes.
But it works.
But it does.
It works.
Well, because then it cuts to, we meet Lila.
Yep. Marion's sister.
Who I think they did a really good job, because when I saw her at first, once I kind of thought about it, she doesn't look too much like Marion, but at first I was like, she looks like Marion.
Yes. Casting
at first
was amazing.
Yeah.
She totally looks like Marion. Yeah. No, they did. I thought the exact same thing.
Yeah.
So they cut to Lila, who is now trying to find her sister. So she shows up at Sam's place.
Mm-hmm. Which makes sense.
Because she's like, I know that Marion was going to come to see you. So where is she? And Sam is like, I don't know what you're talking about. Is Marion in trouble? What's going on?
He knows nothing about the $40,000 she stole.
Yep, he has no idea. Yeah. And then in comes our next character, Arbogast.
Oh,
as the sheriff says, Arbogast.
Arbogast.
And he doesn't believe Sam at first. He's like, all right, where is she? I know that she's here somewhere. And so Sam is very adamant about the fact that she's not. And so Arbogast tries to find where Marion was last seen. And that's how he stumbles upon the Bates Motel.
Yeah. Because he just goes and then checks every hotel and motel.
Right. Because he said that he had been at like every local place.
Yeah, and we get like a little
montage
of him like going,
which I love.
Like, no, I haven't seen her.
Like, I love a good montage.
Love a montage.
And I feel like before the montage, when he's talking to Arbogast, he says a line that I didn't understand, and I had to look up. And I'm curious if either of you caught it. He's like, when he's still doubting Sam, he's like, "Look, if it doesn't gel, it isn't a spick." Or
aspic.
Aspic. It is an aspic.
Yeah.
And I was
No, I
like,
didn't catch that.
I know what
hell
that
is
is. So
aspic?
aspic is this like meat jelly.
What?
It's like a Russian delicacy. Well, I
What?
mean, maybe not only Russian. It can be other places too. I just know of it as a Russian delicacy.
Yeah.
It's called aspic. It's this meat gelatin.
Yeah.
And so that's what he means. If it doesn't gel, it's not aspic.
And I was like, is that some saying that people in the 60s used to use?
Well, yeah, because
Is
aspic
it?
was
more
it would have
common.
been a common delicacy.
Okay.
Like something you would have served at like a fancy dinner party.
Yeah.
You would have had an aspic appetizer.
Okay. All right.
I just happen to love 1960s, like, so I know of
All right.
aspic.
I've
sorry.
never heard of that. Yeah.
I needed to bring it up because I was like, what if our listeners are thinking, what the hell is aspic?
The meat gelatin.
Meat gelatin.
Meat jelly.
It reminds me of our very first episode of the
Yes.
podcast where we talked about head cheese.
Yep.
Yes. Oh
Yeah,
my
I
god.
I immediately thought of that.
Oh.
Yeah.
Nostalgic.
I don't eat much meat, so this is like really nasty to me. Oh man.
Yes.
Okay, so montage
Mm-hmm.
happens, and then Arbogast, I wrote down like he just walks, he goes to that hotel,
Mm-hmm.
and I think he gets a weird vibe
Yeah.
from Norman.
I mean, Norman is so like he keeps changing his story.
Oh, very suspicious.
We see his nervous stutter that he starts to add.
Yeah.
Like it's pretty clear he's hiding
It
something.
is not
It's-
aspic.
Yeah.
Did I use
It's
that right?
not. Yes.
Yeah. It's not gelin.
It's not gelling at all.
Like Magellan. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then he like sneaks up to the house, and because he's like basically asking Norman, I want to meet your mom. And Norman is saying, no, you can't meet her. She's ill. And so Arbogast is like, well, I'm just going to sneak and go up there. And I like how he just like goes in the house.
I know. I made a note. I
This
was like,
whole
you're
movie.
just gonna walk in. I mean,
Like,
I guess
not
he's
even a
not
courtesy
cop,
knock.
Yeah.
just
no.
does
Just
what he
walk in.
wants,
It's all
but
good.
just go ahead.
No, but before he does that, he calls Lila and Sam to
Oh,
let
yes.
him
Right.
let them know. And he says, I think he says, expect me in an hour. Like I
Yeah.
will see
An
you in
hour or less.
An hour or
Yes.
less. I'm going to go
Mhm.
check out the house real fast, talk to
Mhm.
the mom,
Yep.
and I'll be right back.
An hour or
Yes.
less.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So
But
then we
no.
get the classic Hitchcock style camera shot of Arbogast going up the stairs, and it's like this zoom out and zoom in at the
It's
same
like
time,
this
the weird angles.
Mind fork because the banister looks huge
It does.
and
yeah.
Arbogast looks tiny, so it's this weird
Yeah.
parallel universe of
It's
him
so
walking
cool.
up the stairs.
Yes.
Yes. So, one thing that I thought was interesting with this scene is I think for some reason Hitchcock wasn't there when they first filmed it. And the way that they did it was they took inspiration from one of Hitchcock's other movies. And so the way that they shot is as the PI is walking up the stairs, they kind of do the thing where they zoom in on his hand holding the railing going up, and then they zoom in on like the feet walking up the stairs. And so Hitchcock saw that and he said, no, that is the killer. That's a killer going up the stairs. He is a victim. So you need to redo this. And so
Wow.
that's why we ended up getting the one that we ultimately got in the movie, which makes way more sense because like when you
for
get
sure.
that original one, it's like no, like this is how the like
Yeah.
the monster would be filmed. Like we need to make sure people know he's the victim walking up the stairs, which makes sense.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm.
But he walks up the stairs and then the door opens to the bedroom and we see Norman's mother come out holding the knife high above her head, and she just attacked, like I think she stabs him in the face or something, because isn't it that like he has blood all over his face, and just gets him, and that's when we get the next camera scene of him falling
down
the stairs, which is such a good moment.
Yeah. So like I said, then he falls.
Yeah, right. Well, because he
Pretty
was
much.
stabbed, but yes, then he falls down the stairs. And then we just see Norman's mom just over the body, just stabbing him, just getting him.
Yep.
So then cut to Lila and Sam, and Lila is like, there is something wrong. Arbogast said he would be back and he's not.
Mhm.
We're going to go find him. And Sam is like, well, we're not going to go to the motel at this hour. Let's go talk to the local sheriff.
Yes.
So they go to the local sheriff's house instead. And the sheriff is like, no, you know what? Arbogast just took off. This guy just didn't want to deal with you anymore. He's out of here.
Oh, yeah. Like he probably just got a lead on the 40 grand and
just
left you.
Just left you. And he's like, so look, we'll call Bates Motel, but if he doesn't answer, it's because it's late at night. And I think it just dries up there, right?
Well,
so
he also
Norman,
gives him some key information.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Norman does pick up and is like, no, everything's fine. But then somehow it gets to where Lila and Sam are saying, well, yeah, but you know, they're telling the story about basically, oh, Arbogast went up to talk to his mother. And the sheriff is like, she's been dead for 10 years.
Yes.
It actually works with my
Hey, that
voice.
works really well.
That works really well with your voice.
So, and they're like, no way. He says
Because Sam saw the mother in the window. So Sam is like, well, then who did I see?
Right.
And he's like, oh, you're just, you were hallucinating.
Yeah, you just saw nobody. There's nobody there.
You're just seeing things.
He tells the story of about 10 years ago. Norman's mom had wait. Because it was a murder-suicide.
Yes. That's
okay, that's right.
Is.
Okay.
Yeah, she had a lover.
You know what caught me off guard is I was gonna say like it's a murder-suicide. And I was like, but wait, I was thinking it was between Norman's mom and her husband or her lover. And I was like, but she's alive. No, I'm an idiot.
Right.
You were just falling for Norman's trap.
Yep.
Spoiler alert, she's not alive. And so yeah, like it was reported that she, I think, poisoned the lover.
Yep.
And then poisoned herself. So she's been dead. They buried her. The sheriff was like, we buried her in this cemetery over here.
Yeah.
So they're like, what?
Yeah. Well, and they start questioning, like, wait, maybe I
didn't really see.
Oh yeah, because at one point the cop is like, if that wasn't Mrs. Bates, then who did we marry?
Yeah.
Right.
Are just so good.
Yeah. The whole movie is just full of amazing quotes.
So the next day they go to talk to the sheriff after church, and the sheriff is like, let it lie. Arbogast is gone.
He called and didn't get anything.
We're done here. Like, come to lunch. We're done. But Lila is like, absolutely not. We need to go to this motel. We'll just pretend to be a couple on a journey and we'll go check in at the motel. And Sam is like, okay, let's go. Yep. So they do.
Yep.
Yes.
So they go into the hotel, they check in. Norman puts them in like room 12 or something, but they know that Marion was in room 1. So they're going to go take a walk. Or they're taking
the air.
Yes.
That's a thing. You take the air.
Yes.
So they're going to go take the air. And then Sam is like pestering Norman, just having, bullshit conversations with him.
So Lila can go to the house.
Distracting him. Yeah.
And like the scene of like her walking up to the house and how terrifying that must have been.
Because the house just looks so daunting.
It does.
Like up on the hill ahead of her.
Yeah. No, she does, like, she kind of slowly makes her way up, right? Like as she's kind of getting closer, you kind of get the pause of, am I really about to go in here? Like you see her kind of think about
doubting
what she's about to do.
Yes.
Yeah. Which makes sense because you're trespassing.
Right.
Once again, just goes in.
So then like she's super jumpy. So she goes into the house and she's again slowly kind of wandering between rooms, like investigating. She gets to the master bedroom. And I love the scene. Again, there's good comedy in this movie. She's like investigating and she's all spooky. And then she like jumps. She gets super scared because she sees her own reflection.
Right.
I know. So
and
good.
I was like, that is so something I would do.
Now we should say we left a scene out. I just realized we need to backtrack a little.
Oh, what did we forget?
The night after the sheriff called Norman went up to the house and went to his mother, and his mother and him had a discussion about how she has to go back to the fruit cellar.
And you're hearing this discussion while you're looking at the hallway. And
you're looking at the hallway, but you're hearing Norman and his mother have a lengthy conversation about how she has to go back to the fruit cellar. And she's like, no, Norman, I went there once and I won't do it again.
Yep.
And Norman's like, mother, I'm going to carry you down there. And so we see Norman leave the bedroom carrying his mother's body down to the fruit cellar.
Yep.
So go back to Lila being in the house.
Yeah.
She's trying to find mother.
And I noticed that one of the things that happened when she was in the room after she got scared of herself is she focuses in on this record that was playing.
Yeah.
And so I wrote it down and I went and I found it. It's this, Premier Beethoven Eroica Symphony number 3 in E flat minor, OP 55. I don't feel like that music was in the movie.
No,
it wasn't. This symphony that I listened to was like almost an hour long or something. And I kind of skipped around and I don't think it was in the movie, but I was like, what is the significance?
Oh, I don't, but they didn't really focus on it.
Really focused in on it.
There's got to be something there.
Something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You better deep dive.
All right, sippers, if you find out.
More deep diving.
Yeah, sippers, if any of you know the significance of this, let us know.
Let us know. Yeah.
Okay, so Lila's looking, and at this point we go back to Sam and Norman is like, wait a minute, your wife isn't here. Where is she?
He's catching on that something's up.
Caught on. So Norman is gonna rushes back to the house. And so now Lila is caught between the exit of the house and Norman, and she has nowhere to go but the fruit cellar.
Because she sees him getting closer, and she's like, "Oh God, I'm gonna go hide."
So she runs down to the fruit cellar, and I love this scene where she turns on the light, and it's one of those hanging bulbs,
Of course.
and she sees Mrs. Bates. So she puts her hand on her shoulder. She's like, "Mrs. Bates." And we get this sharp music, and Mrs. Bates turns, and it's just this decrepit
corpse.
And Lila's scream is just phenomenal.
She
so good.
Screams. And so Norman, of course, hears her, and we now hear him rushing down. So she's trapped in this fruit cellar with Mrs. Bates while Norman is coming down.
And we see him in the dress.
But it's not Norman.
Yes.
It's Norman as his mother.
Yes. Mrs. Gates.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
But then Sam comes in too
to the rescue
between Norman and Sam.
And I love this scene where Sam is struggling to take the knife from Norman, and Norman's facade as Mrs. Bates is falling away. First the wig falls off.
Yes.
And then the dress rips open. And we see it's just Norman under there.
Yes. Apparently that scene was really hard to get. They knew that's what they wanted, which was fight for the knife. The wig comes off, the dress comes off. That's what they wanted. And it was really hard to coordinate. So it took them a lot of takes.
I can believe
to try
that.
to get all of those things in one. Because it does look natural the way they're fighting. It doesn't look like, they're forcing one of the the wig or the dress or anything.
Yeah, it doesn't look too choreographed.
Natural, but it took them a long time to film it.
Oh, so good. So then we cut to the police station, and everything has been discovered. So we've discovered that Norman goes in between this state where he believes that he is Mrs. Bates. He is cosplaying as his mother, so to say.
Yeah, because Norman won't talk.
Yeah, because Norman won't talk. It's just Mrs. Bates.
The psychiatrist is informing the cops Norman won't talk.
Yeah,
but then he's telling the story because Miss Bates will talk.
Yeah, Miss Bates.
He's explaining what's happening.
Yeah. So the psychiatrist has unveiled that he killed Marion, and also there's a couple of other missing girls.
Yeah, there's
an area that have happened, been murdered as well. He also murdered Arbogast, and that he is now going to be Mrs. Bates. That it is very unlikely that Norman, I say in air quotes, will ever come back.
Well, and because
Bates has taken over.
He explains that that Norman has multiple personalities.
Yeah.
And that it was that he was both, but that he was mostly, I think, mostly Mrs. Bates. And now he will never be Norman. He will only ever
be Mrs. Bates.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the cops are like, what are you talking about? So what, he's a transvestite, because that's the language they used. And they're and actually way ahead of his time, and I'm sure you'll get into this in your psych evaluation, but the psychiatrist is like, no, that's not what this is.
And
actually gives a very like intellectual and understandable evaluation.
Like, this is not Norman dressing as a woman. This Norman is
a woman.
Mother.
Is
like,
his mother.
Is his mother's personality. He's not pretending. He's not just dressing as a woman. This is not like some fetish.
Right.
Norman is his mom.
So one thing with that scene, actually, when they were, the network was reviewing the movie and the script, they specifically called that out when he says the word transvestite, and they said, oh no, like, you can't say that. Like, you cannot use that word, like, thinking, like, this is offensive, like, we can't use this in the movie. And the writer who had included it, he actually pulled it up in the dictionary to show you, like, this is a real word, and here is the definition of that word right now. And that describes the situation.
Right.
And so they were like, oh, okay.
Okay.
That's fine then. I guess you can use it in the movie.
Yeah.
So that's the only thing they took offense to.
Wow.
Was that word.
Out of everything.
Yep.
So then the movie cuts to them pulling the car out of the lake.
We get Norman's, the last scene.
Oh my gosh. Yes, thank you.
It's so good.
Okay, thank you. Explain that.
Because Mrs. Bates, Norman, wants a blanket. Because they're chilly.
Yeah.
And so he gets the blanket. And then it's the like internal monologue.
Yeah, she's just like talking
Bates.
about what was going on. Yeah,
talking about what's happening. And then we get the fly on the hand, and like thinking where it's like, oh, I'm not even gonna swat this fly.
I wouldn't even hurt a fly.
I think I know they're watching me, and I want them to know, like, I wouldn't even hurt a fly.
Yep.
And his face while this monologue is it's so good.
The look he is portraying is
so good.
The acting is so good. I know I've said that like 10 times.
No, but it
really just
merits
it.
Yeah.
And then we get kind of like, is like the end scene is like the car being
and then we cut to the car, and that's it. The end.
That's it.
End scene.
Yeah, that's it.
Yes. Well, I feel like now's a good time to dive into some psych.
I feel like we have to. I feel like we have to go to the psych.
Right before psych, I want to say something that I forgot to mention earlier when we were talking about when Norman was talking to Marion, and he was explaining why he wouldn't send his mom to an institution. And he was talking about like, oh, those places are, they're cold and they're let's see, how did he say it? Like her fire, or if I left, she'd become like, the fire would go out, it would become cold and dark. I hate knowing what would become of her. She would just like decay. And it's like, he was totally talking about because she's a corpse.
Yeah.
She cannot light the fire. She cannot turn the lights on. She was like, and I just thought like that was so cool watching it back, knowing
what it was
really
it's like,
totally agree.
Yeah.
Also, one more quote, which is going to lead right into the psych.
Okay, let's hear it.
Right when that kind of conversation is happening, they were talking about the closeness between Norman and his mom. And he says the line of, well, a son is a poor substitute for a lover.
Oh, yes.
Right.
Cue the psych.
Psych.
All right. So let's talk about the psychology of mommy issues.
And don't forget, folks, she's not a real doctor, but it's okay because they're not real people.
Sure are not. Sure are not. So mommy issues will lead to problems in forming and maintaining healthy adult relationships. And that is due to this insecure and unhealthy relationship with their mother. or another female figure in childhood. And it can lead to negative self-image, low levels of trust, murder. No, not really. But in Norman's case, it did.
Murder.
Murder.
And really, this idea, I mean, obviously, there's no DSM diagnosis for mommy issues, but this idea is related to topics we've talked about in the past: attachment theory, bonding theory. But in Norman's case, in the ones we've talked about before, it was almost like we were talking about when those attachments aren't formed or are not good. Whereas with Norman's, it's like an over attachment.
Like a lot.
Yeah.
An over reliance. Also known as enmeshment.
Oh, I've never heard that. That's a new word.
So enmeshment is the new word we're learning for today. In one website, it referred to it as covert incest, which I think is just a little nastier way to say it.
Okay.
Sorry.
But this is when a parent might depend on a child for the emotional needs that normally a romantic partner would offer. And I feel like we get some allusion to this. Just, a son being a poor substitute for a lover, and, the mom, just how jealous Norman gets when her mom takes this new lover, that we then realize he then killed them instead of the mom. Or do you think the mom actually poisoned the lover and herself?
Well, I think don't we learn? I think Norman confesses.
I think so. So.
Yeah, with the psychiatrist at the end, I think he tells him that it was him.
Okay,
yeah.
all right. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't like making that up.
Yeah.
No, you're not.
Yeah.
But so enmeshment is when like the parent and the kid, they just become overly involved in each other's lives. And it impacts the child's development and then relationships with others. So like the child in a sense becomes this surrogate spouse, which is so forked up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like not okay. It leads to major problems. So essentially it's this blurring of boundaries. Like you don't realize, is this my mom? Is this my lover? Like, and also she takes advantage of that relationship. And it can also involve, it can happen on an emotional level. So like if you're entwined in this enmeshment, you can feel each other's emotions. So like if one person becomes emotionally escalated, so do you. And I think this kind of leads then into this like personality thing that happens where like, it's not just that Norman is empathizing and sympathizing with his mom. Like he is feeling exactly what he thinks she's feeling.
Yeah. I mean, I think especially at the end there.
Right.
He was fully convinced about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So some signs of enmeshment would be there's no privacy between the child and the parent.
Okay.
Which these are things we're all kind of inferring because at this point we meet Norman after mom is dead.
Right. We don't know what
but the way he's treating her though, it seems like this was going on.
We know something's off.
Yeah. And just the children have this expectation of like maintaining the family's status quo, even though the husband has passed on. Parents are just overly involved in their child's life. And then the kid will lose their own identity, which again is, I think, what we see happen.
Like literally,
like
Norman, literally,
takes on another identity. So treatment would be like identifying the abuse, going to therapy, identifying the abuse and how it's affected your current relationships, developing healthy boundaries, which at this point Norman can't do because she's dead.
Right.
Yeah. Boundary with a dead person that you think is alive.
That complicates things just a little.
Especially if you think you are them.
Exactly.
If you are one and the same.
Right.
How do you develop healthy boundaries?
Exactly. So like understanding kind of, what happened with the mom, dealing with these unresolved issues, and then like identifying your unhealthy coping behaviors, like being a people pleaser, being codependent, murdering people that you think your mom would disapprove of.
Being a killer.
Yeah. If you get there, maybe it's like seek help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they even talk about like Norman sorry, not Norman, Mrs. Bates goes wild when Norman gets aroused by a woman. So it's like this intense like jealousy of a lover when really it's the mom.
Yeah.
Right. So it's just this enmeshment and blurring of boundaries. Like
yeah.
You know, to us, it
a
doesn't
whole disaster.
go.
It's a cluster.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And the psychiatrist in the movie, he blames it on the mom being like overly demanding and clingy. And then he just talks about, you know, how that leads to matricide, which, you know, it's not a common thing. That's not going to happen a lot.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to save the big one for last.
Okay.
Oh.
Then I also thought about just a little thing, the psychology of greed. Because we talked about how out of character we thought it was for Marion.
Yes.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Why did she steal that money? She doesn't seem like the type.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So greed can come from feeling anxious and feeling vulnerable. It can often be combined with low self-esteem. So the person is going to fixate. So this is what I think Marion did. She fixated on this money as a substitute for the love and security that Sam was not offering her. She was ready to lick the stamps for him. And he was like, nah, I'm not, I can't do that. I can't marry you. I've got alimony. And so like, that's why I think it led her to this greed, because this was the substitute she was trying to fill.
Interesting.
Because she loved him so much.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Oh,
but
I feel like one thing we didn't talk about with Marion that I actually really liked, and it's just like a super side thing.
Yeah.
I loved the way that they did it in the movie, where it was her imagining what was happening while she was running away. I don't think we talked about this yet. Where it's she's driving away, we get these scenes of, I'm assuming it's supposed to be what she is imagining is happening at work the next day.
Yes.
Where, you know, it's like her boss and being like, oh, she's
Where's
late.
Marion?
It's like, oh, but she's always late on Monday. And, you know, like the way that she's thinking about.
No, and that happens a lot. And I loved it.
No, I loved the way that they did it, because they could have cut back and done that. But I like that it was like what she imagined the events would be.
Agreed.
I loved that they did that.
I think her doing that imagination is really portraying feelings of stress, anxiety, depression, despair, maybe even exhaustion, because you know she's driving and running away. And those are all associated with greed.
Yeah. Well, and it makes
like they did a good job of
sense when she gets to a place where she decides to go back, where she's like, you know what, I can't do this, because she makes all of these like scenarios up in her head. It makes more sense that she jumps to a place of being like, no, you know what, I gotta go back.
Yeah. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. No, sorry to interrupt.
Yep. No,
that was a perfect.
Remember that.
Like that was a perfect integration. So now let's get to what I affectionately think of as the flashy, the pizzazz, the sparkle of mental health disorder.
Oh,
DID.
So multiple personality disorder is what they call it in the movie. It's now called dissociative identity disorder. And the reason, I'm not trying to belittle the suffering and the hardship that anyone who has that goes through. But I just feel like it gets a lot of popularity. Like
it's a good movie.
They love to do it in movies.
Like it's so many great movies. Like, do you guys remember the movie Sybil with Sally Field?
Oh,
yes. It was, she did an amazing, I think that's like kind of what put her on the map.
Or that movie Identity. Oh, so good.
Wait, which one was that one?
Oh my God, that's the one that all takes place at a motel. If you have not seen Identity.
I haven't seen it.
Oh my God. Okay. Maybe we need to add that to our list.
Okay, we'll add it.
Oh, good.
I also think of the show that I am just devastated. It was cut way too short. It was with Toni Collette, one of the most brilliant, beautiful actresses in the world. And it was called The United States of Tara.
Yes.
I think it was like a season and a half, maybe 2 seasons.
Yeah.
It was so good. And then it just stopped. I was so devastated.
It's rough.
But anyway, so that's why I call it like this sexy flashy, because it makes
movies love it. Yeah.
Hollywood loves it. It's a good cheap storyline.
It is. Yeah.
I thought I muted.
When in doubt, throw in multiple personalities.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
All right. So should we talk about what DID is?
Yes.
Yes, please.
So that is typically a reaction to trauma and abuse. And it's usually going to occur during childhood. It will be very, very rare for someone to develop DID later in life.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so you're going to see it more later in life. You're not necessarily going to always see it when the person is a kid, but that's when it happens. Usually the typical
like when
age,
it develops.
Yeah. The average age, I think, for when someone is developing DID is about 3 years old.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
So very young. And that's because you've kind of got these, different aspects of your personality, and they eventually kind of mesh together. But when you get DID because of this trauma and abuse, it stops that from happening.
They like fracture.
They fracture. They kind of split off.
Oh, wow.
And really, it's a way of helping a person cope with a distressing situation. So, you're in this awful situation and you just cannot cope. So a lot of times this personality will form, and one of the personalities is going to take on some of that burden, and it's going to allow the main personality to avoid that trauma. So it's defined by there's the presence of two or more distinct personality identities. And it can share some symptoms with like post-traumatic stress disorder, which would be expected, right? Borderline and schizotypal personality disorders. Each identity might have a unique name, personal history, and characteristics. But sometimes not. Sometimes it will just be like a different age of that same person, or a different like version of that same person. It's not always going to be like totally,
right.
Yeah.
Versus Norman.
Yeah. So I guess what this is that kind of like an offshoot with this movie, have like taking the identity of a different person instead of like a different version of yourself.
Right. So I'm thinking what happened with Norman. So I am going to fake doctor diagnose him with multiple person or dissociative identity disorder, because I think she was this abusive, overbearing, enmeshed mom right from the get-go. And I think then when he was developing his personality, no matter what happened with his dad and his mom's lover, he already was splitting. And then I think it kind of like came to light later on. But I think that he really did take on the personality of his mom, and he was her. Like he wasn't pretending he was. So in DID, you're going to have memory lapses. So like if you're in the one, they call them alters. So Norman is one alter, Mrs. Bates is another. So when the one alter is living a life and making memories, the other alter does not have those memories. So like you're not like Norman is not going to remember what Mrs. Bates did.
Right.
That's why Norman couldn't tell anyone what happened.
Because he didn't know.
Wasn't there. Norman wasn't there. Mrs. Bates was there.
Yeah.
So DID, it's very uncommon. About 1.5% of the population might be diagnosed with it, which I actually think seems
high.
It seems higher than I would have.
That does seem high.
That's kind of high.
Right.
What's the population of the world?
Right. So like, here's something though to keep in mind is that the sexy, flashy version of multiple personalities and DID that we see in movies is not typically how it actually it's not this like super extreme like to have different accents, and like that's not typically what happens. It's just this, you kind of go to a slightly different way of handling stressors and approaching the world and speaking and memories, and you lose this memory. But it's not like, oh, I'm a British woman, oh, I'm a little baby boy, oh, I'm a it's not like that.
Not usually. Like that.
Yeah.
Not usually.
Yeah.
So it's more common in women than men, about 6 times more common.
Wow.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
I feel like that's interesting because for some reason in movies, I feel like it's mostly men that I can think of. I don't know why. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's the patriarchy.
Hollywood has that.
Patriarchy.
Right?
Tearing us down.
Damn patriarchy. They even got this from us.
Yeah.
Damn it.
So it used to be even more uncommon, but there was a pretty dramatic increase in the 70s and 80s when people were more often diagnosed with it. And honestly, I think part of that is due to things like the book and the movie Sybil. And there was another book that came out about it, and it was like bringing it to light. So whether it was bringing it to light or becoming something trendy so that people were thinking it was happening when it wasn't. That's kind of a debate
Yeah,
that goes on.
for sure.
So I already kind of talked about like the personalities have different functions. So there's the typical, the normal one, which is the true personality. And then there's the one that can like handle emotions, or the one that can handle bills, or the one that can be like the free spirit. So they have like just these fractured versions of yourself.
Interesting.
And like I think about, and I think we're probably all this way, like I'm different around different people. Like I have my work personality, I have my home personality, I have my spooky Sips personality. Like they're different.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I remember them all. There's the difference.
Yeah. Yeah. You have a shared memory.
Yeah. Yeah. So just a lot of detachment and compartmentalization happens, which, you know, we all have that to some extent, but this is an extreme.
Yeah.
It's really hard to diagnose because most psychiatrists and psychologists don't get a lot of training in it.
Well,
I mean, I wouldn't because I work in a kind of different field. But yeah, it's not that common to be trained in it. The treatment for it would be therapy. There's no pill to treat dissociative identity disorder. Last thing I'll say about it is kind of controversial, even within the field of psychology.
I feel like I've heard of that. Yeah, I feel like I've heard it's controversial.
So, and the etiology is what's like controversial about it. So, is it caused by trauma, or is it caused, even if inadvertently, by the treatment of the trauma?
Oh,
so you go through this treatment, and it can introduce these false memories, and the person who's processing their trauma, it follows the suggestions of the therapist. You know, not necessarily with malintent or anything, but is it the treatment that makes the person falsely remember, oh, wait, this is my personality in this situation. This is how I handle this.
Oh, interesting.
So there's still a lot of controversy around it.
Yeah.
And I think that's another reason why it's hard to diagnose too, because the lack of like I guess decision, or what's the word I'm trying to think of? Just the lack of like understanding and people like, you know, agreement, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a really interesting, complex.
Yeah.
But
It is. And there is something so fascinating about it that like, as a viewer of it, like, there's something so mesmerizing about it that I want to learn more about this. I'm like, I find it so interesting, and it is a very Hollywood accessible disorder because it's like, oh, I can make a movie out of this.
Well, because I mean, really it comes from this place of extreme pain and hurt and like need for coping, but kind of the way it's portrayed, like in Hollywood, it would be like, oh my gosh, could you imagine you could just be multiple different people.
Right.
And when you're other people, you can forget some of the past shit that's happened in your life. Like you literally have no memory of it. Like, wouldn't that be cool? Like you get to be 3 different
Turn it
people
on and off.
Yeah, on and off. Yeah.
So, which is not what happens. Like it's a lot harder than that. But that's kind of what it can present as.
Yeah.
For sure.
Interesting. Ooh, I find it so fascinating.
Yeah.
There's my
that's a good psych eval.
It was a good psychoanalysis.
Psychoanalysis.
All right, should we get to some remaining fun facts?
Yes, please.
Okay, so I'll add a little like, you know, a caveat to these. You know, I usually check IMDb when I'm doing research. I have never seen such a long IMDb for any movie we've done this far. So I decided to focus on the DVD commentary info because that's my favorite source of information.
I respect that decision.
Straight from the DVD commentary. So I got a couple of these things from the internet, but I pretty much decided to just stick to that because why not?
Good choice.
So that's where most of it will come from. Okay. So apparently the intro, like the very, very, very intro, where we get the scene of Phoenix, Arizona, you know, and then zooming into the hotel. Hitchcock originally wanted a helicopter shot of Phoenix that zoomed further and further into the window and then gets into the hotel.
Ooh, that would have been cool.
That was very difficult to do in the 60s, though, because steady cams weren't really a thing.
Right.
And so it was super bumpy. Like they did try to get the shot, but it was basically impossible.
Oh, wow.
And so that's why they ended up going with the scene that we actually get, which I do think it's a very similar. You get the pan.
No, it works.
The pan shot of Phoenix and then zoom and then pan and then
it works.
The hotel. Like it worked. I think it worked out.
And it wouldn't have been good if it was like Blair Witch vibe, like we just
exactly.
watched, with this super shaky camera.
No more shaking, please.
Yeah.
Okay. One thing, I wonder if you guys caught this. The lingerie, like the underwear that Marion's character is wearing, they intentionally had it be white at the beginning when she's more innocent and angelic, and then black after she steals the money.
Interesting.
That was very intentional. That
love
was supposed to like show her character.
Wow.
As she's going through the movie.
I
like
love
how-
that attention to detail.
I like how she's innocent when she's having an affair with a man in a hotel.
You know,
on her lunch
innocent
break.
in that she doesn't steal money.
Well, right. And you know what? Sex is fine. Go get yours.
She is innocent.
You get yours, girl.
She's gonna lick that stamp. Okay.
She's gonna lick the stamp. Ooh.
Okay, I did mention that this was based off of a book, but the way that Hitchcock heard about the book is there was a book review in the newspaper, and it was like they loved it. The review was really good. And so Hitchcock asked his assistant, like, let's try to get this book. You know, that it was kind of, he didn't even read the book. He just knew that was kind of a good way to start.
Right.
He did eventually, actually, you know what? I don't know if he read the book. He said he skimmed it, which makes, I think it differs.
Not the same
from
as
the book.
reading.
I think he skimmed it in order to get the movie. I think a lot of people agree the movie was better.
Now I want to go read the book.
Right? Maybe we should start a spooky movie club.
Yes, a book club.
Or spooky book club. Sorry.
Oh my gosh.
Spooky book club.
Yes.
Spooky books.
Spin-off.
Spin-off. Love it.
Guys, let us know if you want to do a spooky book club.
Yeah, let us
We're
know.
totally there.
Yeah. And then another shout out to our first episode, which I think we already talked about earlier. The book was based off of Ed Gein, which we talked about in episode 1, Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Nice.
So a lot of callbacks to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So apparently the first writer that they got, they did not like. He read the book, wrote the script. They did not like it. And so they moved on to their new writer and the one that they kept. And he came up with the idea of having Marion's character be a bigger part of the movie. Because I do think that the book, her part of it is a lot shorter. And he wanted to make that longer. So that was his idea of getting more into her character and have it take up more of the movie.
I appreciate that because
like that too.
I liked that.
I think it worked really well.
It's not just glorifying the psycho killer.
It gives you a connection to the victim.
Exactly. You actually get to know the victim. And so part of the reason why Hitchcock wanted to make this movie is he wanted to make a low budget movie. Like he went into it with the intention of keeping the budget under $1 million, which would be $10 million today, which for a movie is a low budget. Part of the way that they kept it low budget was it being black and white, which 2 for 1, it gets to be cheaper. And he thought the gore would be a little easier to process. And one way that he saved money is he actually used the crew from his Alfred Hitchcock Presents TV show.
Oh, cool.
So he just reused the crew for that in order to save some money.
Like less training and stuff, I'm guessing.
Yeah, no, exactly. And they were already ready to go. So the network wasn't super happy. I forget which one he was with. They weren't pumped about this. They didn't think it was going to do really well. So I did see somewhere that he waived his usual salary, which was $250,000, which would be about $2.5 million. And instead took a percentage, 60% of the gross profits of the movie. The movie went on to make $40 million. So he got paid a very pretty penny.
Nice.
Smart
movie.
man. Smart man.
Because they didn't think that this was going to work out. So good for him.
I was curious, like, how does the gore of this movie stand up to other movies of the time?
Yeah.
Like, was this an exceptional amount of gore, because really the shower scene is a little intense.
It is. Yeah.
So like, was that remarkable for the time, or was that about on par for what other movies were doing?
I know, because we've watched like some movies from the 70s and those are super gory.
Yeah, like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
I
like
almost wonder if this was part of a shift.
But like
kind of
1960
things. Yeah. Because I feel like this movie, it was ahead of its time for so many things. Like
and even her
nudity, like that was
her underwear. Like,
yeah, I mean, the shower scene was very new. Like the idea of having this type of scene in a movie was innovative and new for the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wonder. I don't know how it compares to other ones, but I imagine it's ahead of its time.
Yeah, I would think so.
I guess originally Hitchcock thought he worried that the movie would be too long. And so they basically decided that they either needed to cut one full scene from the movie or small parts from multiple scenes in order to just kind of reduce the time. Because it is actually kind of long.
Yeah.
Like, especially a movie from the 60s. I thought this was going to be a short movie.
I noticed that when I went to go play it. I was like, oh my gosh, it's almost 2 hours.
Yeah.
That's
it's like a 2-hour movie.
But here's how I know that I'm going to give this movie a decent amount of sips, because I did not feel like it was long.
No, I mean, it's worth it. Yeah.
Like,
Oh,
no, for sure.
Sometimes they're long. Like, I'm just like, when is it going to over? But this one,
but like seeing the time that it is, I was like, damn,
I was surprised. Yeah. So they ended up cutting. There was a scene between Sam and Lila where they kind of come to the realization that they have very likely Marion is dead. And so it's them coming to the realization that they've both lost someone that they love, and kind of like talking through this. They decided to cut the scene because while it was a nice scene and it added to their characters, it wasn't really essential to the plot.
Right.
And so, I don't think it was necessary. That probably would have gotten it to very close to the 2-hour mark.
Yeah.
So,
right.
And you know what? I feel like just with the body language and the way they interacted,
I already got that
sense.
No, totally. Exactly.
Like, there's that unspoken connection that the way that they form, where it's like that you already knew that.
You already get that.
No, yeah, it was
you don't have to spell it out.
Say it. Yeah.
Although I do kind of wish I could have heard that, because the dialogue and the conversations are so good in this movie.
Good.
Yeah, I bet it would have been really good.
Yeah. They didn't even film it, so you can't find like a deleted scene or anything of it. They cut it before filming, so but I'm sure it was good. Okay, so apparently Hitchcock has a really nice sense of humor. So he decided to prank Jeanette Lee while on set. And the way he would do this was he would have different versions of Mother sitting in her chair when she was going to go to makeup.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
Love it.
So she did mention that the version of Mother that ended up being in the movie was the one that got the strongest reaction from her.
Oh, that's amazing.
So she was like, he based it off of my reaction. Like that got the biggest scream. So that's what made it in the movie.
Oh my God, I love that.
That's amazing. And also I just love that she was Mother. Like the way if anyone ever refers to their mom as Mother, like, well, Mother says this.
Yeah.
I get a weird vibe.
There's a
weird say my mother. You could say
no, but if you're talking to me and you say Mother says, you're done.
We've watched too many horror movies.
We're done. I've watched too many horror movies. You're out of my life.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, definitely.
Do not refer to your mom as Mother.
No. So we did mention that Pat Hitchcock is in the movie. She also gave a lot of her input in not only this movie, but a lot of Hitchcock's movies. He would get her opinion for a bunch of stuff, and she would kind of give feedback. And, she had a lot of ideas that she actually contributed to a lot of Hitchcock's movies.
That's cool.
And one thing that she caught was this was like the end of editing. They had already, I think, shown it to like a couple different people. She caught that in the scene where Marion's character is supposed to be dead after she's like down in the shower and they zoom in on her eyes, she took a breath. And she caught it, that she could tell that she took a breath. And so they went back to edit and like cut that out.
Oh my gosh.
A little shorter. But it's like it had gone through a bunch of people and somehow no one had caught it.
I always wonder when that happens, like when
Yeah.
there's something that seems so obvious.
Right.
Yeah.
You just need a director's wife there to be like, or husband to be like,
No.
hello.
Be like,
It's
hey,
true. I mean,
missed something.
Like I have to write reports all the time for my job, and
Mhm.
I'll reread them before I give them to people, but they're these like official reports. And sometimes I'll go back, like even today I didn't catch one. Someone else caught one of like an error I made. And it's like, you read it like 3 times.
It's so obvious.
And your
no,
brain
yeah.
just like goes to what you know is supposed to
No,
happen.
it does. So yeah.
Oh, I hate
Yep.
it. I just need a professional
But yeah.
proofreader.
Yeah. But I feel like she saved it. Can you imagine if you could see a breath?
No.
That would be
messed up. Yeah.
insane.
Yeah.
Jeanette Lee never really realized how vulnerable someone is while taking a shower until filming this movie, and so she has long preferred baths.
Nice.
After this, she did
That's
not love
amazing.
taking a shower after.
Oh my
And
gosh.
talked about it in the DVD commentary. Okay, one thing that I feel like we've talked about in other movies is the release. Hitchcock became adamant that people need to watch this movie from beginning to end. He said, we cannot have someone coming in halfway through the movie because they knew that Jeanette Lee was going to be in the movie. She was a big star. He didn't want them coming in after her death and then wondering where she was.
Yeah.
You know, like waiting for her to come out. He really strongly felt that people needed to sit down and watch the entire movie start to finish. And so he convinced Paramount, which was the network that he was working with to make the movie, to basically convince theaters that they should not allow people to come in late.
Nice.
I respect that.
He basically said, you have to watch this movie. That was a big part of the advertising for this movie, was like, you will not be allowed to enter late. And so when you showed up to the theater, they had a cardboard cutout of Hitchcock and he held a little sign, and I'll read it. And it says, we won't allow you to cheat yourself. You must see Psycho from beginning to end to fully enjoy it. Therefore, do not expect to be admitted into the theater after the start of each performance of the picture. We say no one, and we mean no one, not even the manager's brother, the president of the United States, or the Queen of England, in parentheses, God bless her.
Oh my God.
Oh my God. That's amazing.
I love
And apparently
that.
some people tried to like test this, like news outlets would send like pregnant women to go and be like, oh, but I'm pregnant, like let me in, like that's, I can't believe. Nope. They were like, nah, that's not,
you're out of
policy.
here.
Do not cheat yourself, pregnant woman.
Yeah,
You're
like, now
done.
you gotta
Gotta
watch
see
the
it.
whole thing or you're not watching it.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
So like you would have people like the way that they did is people would line up outside the theater. They would let in the people that could watch it. And then as soon as the showing would start, they had a sign outside that would show when the next showing was going to start.
Yeah.
Like they basically just had a constant flow of people because
Oh my
of this marketing.
gosh.
Good marketing.
Like people knew they had to watch it from beginning to end.
That's so
which I think is
cool.
so cool.
Yeah.
Oh man, movies just aren't the same.
I know. It's like
Man.
we got to do more stuff like this.
I
We gotta do way
know.
more stuff like this.
Man.
And then one more thing, the trailer was 6 minutes long.
Oh
Oh
my,
my
God.
gosh.
And okay, I feel like we're all in the same camp. We hate trailers. It's like you
Yeah.
can't have a long
I-
trailer. Don't give the movie
I do
away.
like trailers. I will say I do love trailers.
Yes.
But not if they give everything away.
Yes.
No.
Now,
I like little babies.
This one, I thought it was really interesting, actually. And I don't know if I've seen any trailer that was like this. What Hitchcock did, so it was Hitchcock in the trailer. He gave basically a tour of the set. And so it was
Oh.
him showing like, this is the Bates Motel, like a very normal looking hotel. And he would go and he would show you things that like were important in the movie. And the way that he would talk, like he would go to like the stairs where the PI falls.
Yeah.
And, you know, he's talking about the staircase and like how something happens. And then he's like, oh, like I can't even talk about it. You know, like he would, you know, try to like, oh no, I it's too much. I can't talk about it.
Oh
you
my
know, as he's
gosh.
like walking through the set, which I think is a really fun way.
Yeah, actually,
do
I
agree.
approve of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Of all trailers,
That's
I
kinda
could
cool.
handle that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we got a 6-minute trailer
Wow.
of that, which I actually thought was really cool.
I'll approve.
Oh, you can still see the house if you go to Universal Studios. I've seen it. Do the tour. It's fun.
Cool.
Okay.
In case you were curious. And then for like how did audiences receive it? Basically, the audience really liked it. The critics did not. There's a theory that maybe part of the reason that the critics didn't like it is Hitchcock really did not want any of the movie to be spoiled. And so while critics usually got like a pre-screening of the movie and like a separate space, they did not do this for this movie. They're like, if you want to see it, you can go to the theater on opening night.
Damn. Okay.
So some people think the critics were just grumpy because they had to go to the theater with all the other people. But the critics didn't like it. Obviously, the critics would go on to like it.
Right.
Yeah. But at the very beginning, they weren't huge fans.
Interesting.
Yeah. And those are the fun facts.
Oh my gosh, so fascinating.
Oh, and there's you could write a book on this movie.
No,
I'm
you
sure
could.
people have.
But you could write a thesis.
Especially because I think that it's like one of the main horror movies. Like if you were to you need to see these 5 horror movies, Psycho would be in that list.
Yep.
Like, so it's an establishment in the horror community. And so I feel like the trivia is but that was great.
Yeah. Okay, so I have some real quick this time in history. I just have to keep it really short since I feel like there were a lot of fun facts in this one.
So many,
So what was going on in 1960? In the US, Eisenhower was president, and while he was president, he signed the Civil Rights Act. And yay, progress.
Yay.
Speaking of the president, we had the first ever televised U.S. presidential debate between Kennedy and Nixon.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, which Kennedy would go on to win.
He was more charming.
Italy held the Summer Olympics in Rome that year. And then I have a couple inventions. So the aluminum can was used for the first time.
What? Look at that.
Right? Xerox introduced the first commercial document reproduction machine.
Oh shit.
So y'all, my husband used to work for Xerox.
Oh my god.
He worked on like programming printers. That was like his first like professional job for a long time. And it's just funny because they came out like I guess apparently 1960 and they were on their way out or still are. Like you could find printers, but it's not
not what it was.
It's a dying system.
Take a Xerox.
Yep.
The US launched its first weather satellite.
Oh,
cool. The heart pacemaker was invented. And in books, To Kill a Mockingbird was published.
Oh, yep.
I'm sure we all read that in high school.
Yep.
You have to. It's a rite of passage.
You do.
The Flintstones premiered.
Oh,
which is crazy to me for some reason.
That is crazy.
Because we were still. I was still watching that as a kid.
Yeah. No, I feel like it's stuck around. It's stuck around. In toy news, the Etch-a-Sketch was introduced.
Yes, I love the Etch-a-Sketch.
And then popular films at the time were Ben-Hur, Can, and of course, Psycho was one of the most popular films at the time.
Yep. Nice.
Yeah. So some quick this time in history for the 60s.
You know what? I think 1960 was a good year.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, what a good movie.
Very good.
Oh, it was such a good rewatch, honestly. It's It's one
of those ones that I think I will rewatch again. Like, I don't think this was my last one by any means. I think it's one that you can watch multiple times because you really do get different things out of it. And it's the kind of one where you can go and read a bunch about it and then get that out of your next rewatch.
Yeah.
Because there's so much trivia that I feel like
there's so much to learn about.
So much about it. And then go rewatch it and get even more out of the next one.
No, you really could do like a full-on dissertation on this movie. It's amazing.
You could. Oh, I'm sure it's been done.
Yeah.
Multiple times.
I guarantee. Yeah. Okay, so let's get into our ratings because on Spooky Sips, we don't do stars, we do sips. So ladies, out of 5 sips, how many are you giving this movie?
Ladies, I'm going to do a first.
Oh.
On Spooky Sips. And it's funny because when watching this movie, I wasn't thinking like this is one of the best movies horror movies I've seen, but just the different levels of it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm giving it a 5.
First
5 I've given.
We have our first 5.
We have our very first 5
I think that's the first 5 any of us have given.
Yeah,
I think it is.
Yeah.
Oh, well done.
Good job.
What a
our
moment.
First 5.
Yeah. Of course, the psychologist would like Psycho.
Well, yeah.
But no,
Of
it's
course.
yeah, I'm giving it a 5.
A perfect movie for you. I love it.
Yep.
Okay. Oh man, I feel bad following that up.
I know. I feel bad following that up, but I'm gonna have to.
Maybe I should have went last. Sorry.
No, that's okay. I'm gonna go with a 4.
Okay.
That's because it's a really strong movie for me. Like, to give it a 4 means it is highly recommended, highly enjoyed, will watch again, but it's my style of horror movie. There's more to be done there. There's more to be done there. So I give it a 4.
Yeah. I'm right between you two. I was thinking a 4.5 because again, rewatching it. No, it was like, as I was rewatching it, it was like, oh wow, this is a great movie. Like I forgot how good this movie is. It's definitely a rewatch. It's so good. My only pause to giving it a 5 is, for me, it was a little slow. There were a few moments that were like a little slow for me, which again is just personal taste.
Yeah.
It was so close, but I think it's not my personal 5. I don't think I'm there yet.
See, and that's fine because everyone can have their own taste, right?
Yeah.
I love that.
I thought it had romance, it had depth, it had intrigue, it had violence. I thought it had everything, but you might want something different.
Right.
Yep.
It's an absolute, if you, for whatever reason, haven't seen it, go watch it.
No,
If
you need to go see it.
Go
You
watch
have
it
to go
again.
see it.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Listen to this podcast and then go watch it again.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Well, Sippers, my voice is totally going out at this point.
You're gone.
Well, then that's a good time to say. So next time on Spooky Sips, we are going to be watching Pearl. If you haven't seen it yet, get watching and get sipping. It's going to be a great movie. I haven't seen it yet. I know these two haven't seen it yet.
Nope.
So it's a first watch through for all 3 of us.
Yes.
Oh, it's going to be so good. So if you haven't seen it yet, get watching and get sipping.
Okay.
And we'll see you next time.
Bye.
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 Thank you for listening to Spooky Sips. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you're listening. To stay up to date on all the spooky things we're up to, follow us on Facebook and Instagram at spookysips_podcast. And if you want to help support the podcast, consider buying us a coffee, or really a cocktail. We are completely independent, so every little bit goes a long way to keeping our podcast running and improving. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.